So today we're speaking about kashrut. Kashrut, besides the fact that it's something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded in the Torah Kedosha. So you have to keep kashrut just for that reason alone, because the Torah commanded us. And you have to know that each one of you is going to be a mother and a wife, Be'ezrat Hashem. And the mother and a wife has an obligation, just like a mashgiach kashrut, in a store, in a restaurant. What does a mashgiach kashrut does in a store, in a restaurant? He has to make sure that the food is kosher. He has to make sure that food is kosher. He has two obligations, really. One is that he has to be believed that whatever he does it with emunah, which means you walk into a store, you see it, there's a hechsher. What the hechsher tells you? The hechsher tells you that the person is an honest person, a yerei shamayim, that you can rely on him. And therefore, you're willing to eat in that place. But many people are yerei shamayim, and many people are very much ba'alei emunah. They go to pray in the morning, they keep Shabbat to the teeth, everything is perfect, but they don't have much understanding in the kashrut, and therefore they don't have a broad understanding in halakha. Therefore, you're coming into the place, he could be believed in anything, but if he doesn't know the halachot, he doesn't know what's asur, what's mutar, therefore he could be nichshal and he could be machshil, he could cause others to eat non-kosher very, very easily. Same would apply to any one of us over here. We need to have two things. First of all, we go into the store, go into a supermarket to buy food for our family. Be'ezrat Hashem, it's very soon. What are we buying? It's very important that we need to know what we get, what we're bringing into our house. That's first of all. Secondly, after we brought it into the house, there's so many different details that one could be nichshal, one could do wrong and he doesn't even know. Many different things that you can do in the oven, put meat, cheese, you could have baked challah and you forget to do afrashat challah. So many different things. You bring all kind of lettuce and green things that require cleaning from different bugs that are in there, and you don't even know. So therefore, you be machshil, you cause others in your family to eat things that are not kosher. Today, we want to speak more about the effect of the non-kosher food on our soul. It's interesting that the Torah calls it v'shikatztem et nafshotechem. Lo tochlu kol. In other words, what does it mean? Sheketz. You make yourself disgusting. What does that mean? So I have over here the psukim that speak about it, and listen to this. It's very, very interesting the way the Mefarshim learn this. It says like this. In the pasuk that tells us, "Al teshakzu et nafshotechem bechol asher etz hashoretz velo tetamu bahem v'nitmetem bam." What is the purpose for one not eating non-kosher?
Could you translate that pasuk?
Yes. It says over here, "Al teshakzu et nafshotechem." Teshakzu mean, don't make your soul disgusting. How? How would you make your soul disgusting, and what does it mean to make the soul disgusting? It says, Bechol asher etz hashoretz, this is how, which means if you eat any type of bug, who's going to eat bugs? We're not, Chinese people have plates with all kind of bugs in them, frying them. You can go to Chinatown, buy them by the pound. But we don't do that, so who's eating bugs? Very simple. If you eat something that requires checking and you didn't check, you ate a bug. What happens when you eat a bug? It causes teshakzu et nafshotechem. It causes your soul to become disgusting. What does that mean, and what's the effect? We'll see in a second. Velo titam'u bahem. Don't make yourself impure, tum'ah. V'nitmetem bam. What does it mean, v'nitmetem bam? The words v'nitmetem is written wrong. It should have said v'nitmetem with an aleph, which means milashon tum'ah, that you make yourself impure. But on the contrary, the Torah writes it without an aleph. And you know that whatever the Torah writes is very precise. What does it mean, v'nitmetem, without an aleph? Chazal tell us, that's lashon tumtum. What's a tumtum? Tumtum is clogged. A person become clogged. Rashi says, atimut v'stimut mikol chokhmah, which means you become clogged from understanding wisdom. But many people eat non-kosher, and they're very wise. People that eat non-kosher, you see them professors in colleges, in universities, they very, very successful and they're very wise. So what does it mean that you clogged from all wisdoms? The Mefarshim, as we'll see soon, explained it's the wisdom of the Torah. And therefore you find something interesting, a phenomenon, that you'll have a professor comes to yeshiva, let's say a Jewish professor comes to yeshiva, he's 60, 70 years old, he has a lot of degrees, every day speaks in the highest universities. When he comes to the yeshiva, let's say his grandchild became bar mitzvah, and he sits with his grandchild. He's not religious, but his children became religious, and he wants to come to yeshiva and he wants to learn with his grandchild. He tells him, let's open a Gemara, and learns. This kid can understand questions, answers, Tosfot, Rishonim, Achonim, make all kind of differences in halacha, where this professor doesn't even understand the basic. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He opens the Gemara, he has no clue what the Gemara is saying. He can't even read one line and understand it. Why is that? Because he's clogged from spiritual understanding, from the spiritual wisdom. And that is something that we need to understand. It's very, very important. As the Gemara says in Yuma, the Gemara says over there, Avera metamtemet libo shel adam. The Avera we're talking about over here is the Avera of eating non-kosher. It clogs a person's heart. שנאמר ולא תטמאו בם ונטמאתם בם, אל תקרא ונטמאתם with a aleph, or rather ונטמאתם clogged, as we explained, what is called טומטום. And more than that, the Gemara says לא תטמאו בהם ונטמאתם בם, אדם מטמא עצמו מעט, מטמאים אותו הרבה. If you make yourself a little bit unpure, טמא, with eating a little bit of those things that you're not allowed, they from Shamayim, from heaven, cause a lot of tum'ah to come upon the person. Milemata, if a person does it a little bit here, they do it milemala, metamim oto milemala. Metameh atzmo ba'olam hazeh, if a person makes himself tameh ba'olam hazeh, he makes himself as well, they make him tameh le'olam haba as well. But over here I want to speak about the effect again of those ma'achalot asurot, the forbidden food on our soul. As you understand, we explained that the effect is not necessarily on the body, because a person could eat non-kosher and be healthy, although the Ramban learns that it's also an effect on our physical body. But the Mefarshim, the Rishonim, seem to indicate that the effect is not on the spiritual, but on the physical, but rather on the spiritual. In what ways? In so many different ways, and that is something that is surprising. The Kli Yakar summarizes those ways, and he says, Vadai, not like the Ramban. It's for sure not only a physical effect, but also more spiritual. Rather, everything in the Torah is refuat הנפש, כי הם משקצים הנפש הטהורה, מגרשים רוח טהרה הקדושה מן האדם, מולידים אטימות השכל ותכונת האכזריות. Let's translate each and every one and explain it. It says like this, that מאכלות אסורות, forbidden food, would have the effect that they are משקצים הנפש הטהורה. They make it disgusting, they make your soul disgusting. That's called sheketz. Megarshim ruach tahara. Second thing, they make your spiritual soul go away, go out of your body. The spiritual pure soul go out of the body. That's called megarshim ruach tahara. Not only that, ruach kedusha as well. Kedusha is the closest to Hashem. A person wants to become close to Hashem. He does all kind of things in order to come close to Hashem. He makes mitzvot, he performs, he prays 3 times a day. He tries to do a lot of different things in order to come close to Hashem. We just passed through Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. These are all days that we want to become as close as possible to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's called Kedusha. When you eat something that's not kosher, says the Kli Yakar, it takes away that Kedusha. All of a sudden, a person feels further from Hashem. So there's few things here. First of all, it makes your body disgusting. And there's an effect on that, as we'll see soon. Secondly, the soul, the pure soul comes out of the body. And all of a sudden, a person becomes tameh. What happens when a person becomes tameh? Person becomes tameh. He's more likely to perform all kind of sins that he wouldn't do beforehand. And also the Kedusha, the closest to Hashem. Up to now, a person feels so close to Hashem. He felt a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How fine, how good you feel when you feel a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You feel the closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything disappears when you eat something that's not kosher. Umolidim atimut hasechel, as we explained before, a person gets all of the sudden clog from any understanding of the Torah. So you open a Chumash, you try to understand what Shashi says, you try to understand what the Mefarshim says, and you have no clue. You don't, first of all, you don't connect to it, you don't feel like it, you rather do something else, you rather entertain yourself in all different ways, but you don't have the connection with the Torah Kedosha. Secondly, you don't even understand what it says. Utchunat achzariot. The person becomes all of the sudden achzari, cruel. As you see, that the goyim are very cruel. Very cruel. Where's this cruelty come from? First of all, that's the nature. But secondly, when you eat things that are cruel, that becomes part of your body. As the Rishonim explain, most of all the animals that were forbidden in the Torah are prey animals. All the animals that are permitted are domestic animals, which are not prey animals. So you see that, for instance, a cow you can eat because it's not a prey animal. What does it eat? Grass. Same thing would be for sheep, for deer. They all eat grass. They don't eat animals. But animals that prey on other animals are forbidden in the Torah. Not only the animals, same would be for fish. Fish that are prey, they're not permitted. Birds that are prey, eagle and so on, they're not permitted to eat. You have to eat such birds that are calm birds, like chicken, pigeons. Those things are permitted because they don't prey on other birds or other things. So therefore, we learn from that, say the Rishonim, that when a person eats something that is cruel, let's say you eat a lion, you eat something that is a prey animal or a prey fish or so on, it goes into your body and it becomes part of you. That becomes part of who you are. It goes into your blood system. It makes up your flesh, and it goes into your brain as well. And that's how the Rambam explains. And that becomes part of you. All of a sudden, you become more cruel. What happened? You were so calm beforehand. Now you feel like you want to do cruel things. And you don't understand what happened. The reason is, when you eat something that has the effect, that has such a nature, you become like that as well. That is a very, very serious thing. And the Torah doesn't want us to become like that, because the Jewish nation are a calm, gentle, elach, which means you try to do good and you try to be better and you try to make others feel as much as possible good. And you don't try to be cruel to others, chas v'shalom. Many people not only cruel to others, they're cruel to themselves as well, and they don't understand why they have that nature. Many times that nature comes because of what we're talking right now. So let's see point by point over here. First of all, the fact that it becomes part of you, as we just explained right now, is written in the Rambam, as I explained to you. The Rambam was asked a question by a group of people, a question in Emunah. And when they asked him that, he answered them. He answered them to their satisfaction. But then he told them something that's very interesting. He told them that you should know that the reason you're asking such a question is not just because you have doubts in Emunah, but the reason you asking such a question is because you obviously ate things that are not kosher. When you eat things that are not kosher, as we explained before, that becomes part of you, and it affects you as well to become clogged in understanding anything that's spiritual, as we explained already before. And therefore, we have that understanding of timtum. Timtum is again being clogged. If you want to know what's the definition of timtum in the Hebrew language, it means clogged, atum, clogged, satum mikol chokhmah. And a person becomes, lo alenu, an apikoros. What's an apikoros? He becomes somebody who doesn't believe in the Torah Kedosha. Let me read you the words of the Rambam and translate this, because it's very, very important for our discussion today. The Rambam wrote a letter. It's written in Degel Machane Ephraim that copied his letter. And he says, I'll explain to you, he tells the people that asked him the question, where your doubts came from. Shouldn't have people that come from the Avot HaKadoshim shouldn't have such doubts. Yet, and he explains, and goes through the process of how the food is being processed in the body, how it goes from step to step. יצירת אדם, החלון, יתברר במאיו, it goes into the body, goes into the blood system, the stomach makes the brira between the good and the bad and so on. And finally it goes into the lev, moach, ומזה נעשה השכל. It goes to the blood, it goes to the mind, and from that you become who you are. And therefore, מדבריכם שאתם כופרים, he concludes, this that you have such כפירה, such doubts, such questions on דברי חז"ל, on the words of our sages, לא נזהרתם ממאכלי איסור. I can testify and I can tell you that the reason for that is because you weren't careful on eating things that are forbidden to eat. And therefore, נעשה השכל שלכם מדברים טמאים וטרפות. Your mind is made of דברים טמאים, unpure food, טרפות, things that are forbidden, things that are no good, and therefore you become such a person that is an apikoros. So this is a testimony of the Rambam himself, and this is something that is extremely important for us to understand. Khatam Sofer says, רוב אפיקורסות רחמנא ליצלן מתנוצץ באדם על ידי אכילות נבלות וטרפות. If you see a person that doesn't believe in the Torah הקדושה, or has doubts in the Torah הקדושה, who has questions that he doesn't agree with things that are written in the Torah. Some people think that they're wiser than the Torah. Some people think that they're wiser than our sages, which means they say, oh, the sages are wrong, the Gemara is wrong, obviously this, obviously that. And they'll be able to sit with and argue with you and disprove everything that's written in Torah. Where they don't understand that the distance that they have is because they're eating things that are not kosher. And the Khatam Sofer says that is most of the times the apikorsu that a person has, that feeling of becoming, of arguing with the Torah Kedosha, comes from eating things that are not kosher. Divrei Chaim Mitzan says the same thing as well. And varavera kemachalot asurot. The worst things a person could, the worst sin a person could do is eat forbidden food. Why is that? Because when you make a sin, let's say you do a sin, you speak Lashon Hara, it's terrible, but it doesn't become part of you. Lashon Hara doesn't become part of you. When a person goes and does something that he shouldn't do, he does Avera. He shouldn't do that. It doesn't become part of him. It's something external. He did something that is wrong. He sinned. But when a person eats something that is not permitted, it becomes who he is. It makes him, it's his making. And שטמטום שמטמטם לב ישראל ובעבודותינו הרבים, says the דברי חיים, על ידי זה יצאו כמעט כל הדת כמה קהילות על ידי שוחטים ובודקים הקלים, which means he speaks about sometimes we found that there are shochatim that shechted not kosher, and therefore they distributed things that are not kosher to the public. He says that he saw that there were some places that kehilot, congregations in Klal Israel, that almost came out of the religion and became non-Jews. Just because they ate, even though they didn't mean to eat, they didn't do it purposely, they didn't do it b'mezid, they did it b'shogeg, because just because they were nichshal. There were stories like this also recently. There was a Chinese restaurant with a hechsher of a goy, with a hechsher that people ate over there, and then they found, this was in the news like 2 months ago, they found that it was bringing at night all non-kosher meat and chicken, and then during the day processing and feeding to the people. Such things have an effect on the person eating it, even if he didn't mean to sin. It's not like other things that if you don't mean to sin, it becomes like a shogeg. It's much less. Over here, the sin indeed becomes much less because you didn't mean to sin. There was a hechsher, you didn't do anything wrong. But just like if you put your finger in a fire, you'll be burnt, even though you didn't mean to put your finger in the fire. Same thing is here. Once you eat something that is not kosher, it has an effect on you. Same thing says the Pri Chadash. Pri Chadash is one of the highest authority, halachic authority, especially by the Sfaradim, and he says the following thing: since today many people are not careful with eating kosher things, many children go out of what we call go out of the derech. That's the term today. They go off the derech. ורבים הם עזי פנים שבדור. Not only that, they become cruel, they become עזי פנים. ואין יראת השם נוגעת בלבבם. They don't have יראת שמיים. Even if you try to rebuke them and explain to them, they don't understand. One time I learned over here in the yeshiva, in the Mir Yeshiva for many, many years. And I remember maybe 20 years ago that there was a very intelligent boy that was learning in the yeshiva. And whenever it came to things of emunah, he used to ask me a question, and I answered him. Simple things. Now, you don't need to be a brilliant genius to answer those questions. And it was very to the point, convincing. It was 100% answered, and therefore he should have accepted it. And he always used to tell me, I hear 100% what you say. Why am I not convinced? That was his question always. Why am I not convinced? And you're not convinced because if you're not careful on doing the right things, as we explained today, you can't be convinced because you are clogged. The timtum metamet, as Rashi says, otemet vesotemet mikol chokhmah. It clogs all spiritual wisdom from understanding what the Torah says. And that's what the Malbim says, זה יהיה סיבה שנתמתם ממש, כי הם ישקצו אתכם עד שיטמטמו את הלב, בל יראה באור המצווה והתורה. Which means, again, they clog you, so you're not going to be able to see the light of the Torah HaKdosha, the light of the mitzvot. They're not going to shine on you. Secondly, as we explained in the Kli Yakar, besides the fact that there's atimut sechel, as we explained right now, but also you can't connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a lack of Kedusha. When a person doesn't have Kedusha, he doesn't connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it says, "V'tkadishtem v'tem kedoshim ki ani Hashem Elokechem," which means ki kadosh ani, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm kadosh and you be kadosh as well, so we can connect. And we have a mitzvah in the Torah to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, utvaktem bo, which means you have to become like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, says the Ramban, when it says v'anshe kodesh tiyun li, you should be for me a holy nation. He explains the following. Ani chafetz shetiyu anshe kodesh. I have a desire, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want you to become holy. Ba'avur shetiyu ru'im li. So you can be part of me. You can belong to me. Ledovka bi shani kadosh. Therefore, you'll be able also to attach yourself to me to become like me. Why is that? Because I'm kadosh. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kadosh, he can connect. He can be together with somebody who's tameh. You have to be kadosh as well. Lefichach, says the Ramban, the command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lo tegalu nafshotechem b'achilat dvarim ha'metuavim. Don't eat things that are not kosher, because if you do that, your connection with the Kedusha disappears. And all of a sudden you feel tameh, you feel not pure, and you feel not kadosh, and you don't feel like connecting, you don't feel like talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you don't feel like going to the minyan on time, to the tefillah on time, you don't feel like praying at all. You just open the siddur and you don't see any reason to pray. Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, השומר עצמו ממאכלות אסורות, גובר בו הרצון להתקרב לקדוש ברוך הוא לתורתו ולמצוותיו. When a person keeps the kosher food, he keeps the halachot of the kosher food, he makes sure that he eats kosher, he feels that connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he wants to build on that connection. He opens the siddur and he feels the feeling of let's pray. He wants to open Tehillim and he wants to read Tehillim, and he feels that the Tehillim actually talk to him. He feels that HaKadosh Baruch Hu talk to him. He feels that he talks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He feels a dialogue between him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu when he reads the Tehillim. But whenever a person doesn't do that, he doesn't eat kosher, he opens Tehillim and he just sees words and he just wants to close it and go entertain himself in other means. And therefore, the Yavet says, Sharta emunah be'umatenu, the emunah that laid in our ummah, in our nation, Hello bedvar ha'ma'achalot. It was because of eating kosher food. כי מן המאכל הטהור יעשה גוף טהור, להציל עליו רוח אלוקים, כי למאכלות מבוא גדול. Which means, when a person eats, says the Yavetz, kosher, it builds up the emunah in a person. Listen to this Mesilat Yesharim. Mesilat Yesharim is something that I think everybody learns and reads, and this is what he writes in Perek Yud Aleph. המאכלות האסורות מכניסים טומאה ממש בליבו ובנפשו של אדם. A person all of a sudden feels טומאה. טומאה, he feels disconnect with anything that has to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. says the Misilot Yesharim, טומאה ממש בליבו ובנפשו של האדם, עד שקדושתו של המקום ברוך הוא מסתלקת ומתרחקת ממנו. More than that, when a person eats something that is not kosher, he feels all kind of desires that are forbidden. He wants to do all of the things that are forbidden, that we didn't speak about yet. There are desires that we're not allowed to do in the Torah. There are desires that we have to stay away from in the Torah. When a person eats kosher, he doesn't build on that desire. This is how Rabbeinu Bechaya, it's an important Rishon, writes in Parashat Shmini. He says, לפיכך נסתווינו במאכלות המאכלים האסורים, במצוות המאכלים האסורים שכולן להחליש כוח התאווה. It weakens the desire for bad things that a person shouldn't have. And therefore, we have to be very careful, because people are, if you take a look in the street today, there's so much desire for people that they run after, and that desire could be actually built on, and you'll make yourself want it more and more if you do things that would encourage it. What would be? First of all, if a person sins, avera goreret avera. Once you do something that is wrong, you feel a desire to do it again. It's like an addiction. If you keep on doing the same thing, you become addicted to it. Anything like that, any avera works like that. When you do something that is wrong, if you do it enough times, you become addicted to it. But not only, even before you become addicted, even just doing it one time, you feel the desire, all of a sudden you'll fall in the same avera a second time. That's the way it is. But the desire to have it over and over again, you can weaken if you make sure that you don't eat anything that is not kosher. Says the Zohar HaKadosh about the story of Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and that they were taken to the king in order to become his advisors. And they were young kids, and they were very religious, very baalei emunah. Eventually they became Nevi'im, as you all know. And in that place of the royal kingdom, the palace, they offer them things that are not kosher to eat. It's called Pat Bag HaMelech, the meals of the king. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah said, no, we're not interested to eat. We're just going to eat things that don't require kashrut. Zironim, they ate all kind of seeds in order to satisfy themselves. Normally, such things don't satisfy you enough to be able to perform. They had to perform over there. They had to perform very well. They had to give advices to the king. They had to become very, very wise, and they had a lot of studies to do. You can't really study all day just by eating some seeds. Nevertheless, the Navi explains that indeed they went through eating such things and became wiser than anybody else in the palace. Not only that, they were able to stand in all different nisyonot. Says the Zohar HaKadosh, how were they able to stand to the nisyonot, to withhold the tests? You have all kind of tests in life. What is the clue? What is the key to be able to hold to all kind of tests in your life? Says the Zohar HaKadosh, במה זכו דניאל, חנניה, מישאל ועזריה, שהשתזבו מעינו ניסיוני, that they were able to conquer all the ניסיונות that they had. This is Zohar HaKadosh, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai talks. He says, begin דלא הסתאבו במכלאון, since they didn't eat anything that they weren't permitted to eat. And therefore, because they were careful about what they are eating, they were able to conquer all the hard nisyonot that they had. And therefore it's something that we need to learn, because the Zohar testifies that not only on them, the Zohar comes to teach us how we'll be able to conquer our nisyonot. So many nisyonot that a person has through his life, even through his day. You come out of the school and you have so many different nisyonot that you go through, whether it's home, whether it's on the way home, all kind of things that you know that if you do them, it's not good for you. It's not good for your spirituality. It's not good for your Yiddishkeit. It's not good for your family. It's not good for you. But it's very, very hard to stand to a nisayon. Nisayon is something that sometimes is very hard to conquer. Nevertheless, says the Zohar HaKadosh, just like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were able to stand and withhold to the nisayon by eating only kosher, so does when you eat something that is kosher, you're able to hold yourself from doing anything that is wrong. Now, we're not talking again only about us. We're not talking only about us, because remember, soon you're going to have children, Be'ezrat Hashem, and you're right before building a family. And whenever you build a family, you are responsible not only for yourself, you're responsible also, Be'ezrat Hashem, for your husband and for your children. So when you go to buy something in the store, sometimes you'll see something, you say, yeah, I really need it, the hechsher is, I'm not sure about the hechsher. There's so many different labels of hechsherim today. So every day there's a new hechsher. You see something, it says kosher on it, but you don't recognize it. You don't recognize it. Many of the hechsherim are not really kosher. They're not up to the standard. Many of them are reform hechsherim. Many are not even hechsherim. It just says a K. And they're not really hechsher, because any company can write a K without a hechsher backing it. And therefore you say, oh, it looks good, it looks fine, it has a hechsher, let me take it. Such a thing could result that you bring it at home, feeding your family, and everything that we speak today would have a negative effect on your family, not only on yourself, your family, which means that it's a responsible, just like a man has a responsible in so many different things to bring into the house, spiritual responsibilities, besides physical, besides the financial and everything. I'm talking about spiritual obligation. A man needs to make sure that there's Torah in the house and teaches his children Torah and bring the spirit of Torah into the house. But one of the main responsibilities of a wife in a house is to make sure that whatever she brings to the house or whatever she cooks is kosher, because of everything that we are speaking today. That's something that's extremely important. Listen to this. It says, we all know about the importance of midot tovot. Midot tovot, you learn from many different sefarim. You have sefarim that teach you the good midot, and every person needs to work on his midot, because midot are the characteristic traits of a person. They are the building blocks of everything you'll have in life. A person is an angry person, a person is an edgy person, a person is screams, a person is annoyed with others. He's just not going to be successful in life. He's not going to be successful at home. He's not going to be successful with his relationship with his children and spouse. And he's not going to be successful also at his workplace, with his peers, with nobody. You have to build good traits of midot in order to be successful. That's besides the fact that the Torah commands us to do such a thing, and therefore we have to do it just because HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us to have good midot. The Rambam says, just like a person needs to do teshuvah from sins, he needs to do teshuvah from bad midot and change his midot for the better, which means we had the opportunity now, right before Yom Kippur, to work not only on changing the way we perform mitzvot and get away from averot, but also to change and make ourselves better in the midot. So those midot are very important, not only because of that, which is the real reason the HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded us, but also, if you don't have good midot, you're not going to have a good life. You want to become a successful, good, in everything in life, you have to make sure that you have good midot. What helps midot tovot? Surprisingly, we spoke about so many different things. We spoke about kedusha, tum'ah. We spoke about this. Make sure that your body doesn't become disgusting in the forbidden food. We spoke about understanding spirituality. We spoke about all those things, but also the Sforno says the following thing: Asar kol ha'machalim shemetamtemim hanefesh b'midot uvemuskalot, which means also with midot tovot. A person that eats something that is kosher, it helps out build his good midot. And opposite would cause a person to have bad midot. So midot would be very much affected also by what you eat. And listen to this. I wanna summarize what we're saying with the words of the Arizal that the Or HaChaim HaKadosh himself brings, and this is a big musar, this is a big lesson that we need to remember. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh says on the Pasuk in Tehillim, La'asot etzodcha Elokai chafatzti v'toratcha betoch me'ai. I'll translate, לעשות רצונך אלוקי חפצתי, I wish to do your will, I desire to do your will, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ותורתך בתוך מעי, your Torah is inside my stomach. What does it mean your Torah is inside my stomach? Says Rashi, תורתך בתוך מעי, אף מאכלי על פי תורתך. I eat according to what the Torah הקדושה, your Torah הקדושה, commends me. Anything that I eat is according to the Torah. So that's what it means, Toratcha, your Torah is in my stomach. Anything that the Torah permits me to eat, I eat. Anything that the Torah doesn't permit, I don't eat. Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh from the words of the Arizal. Listen to this. להודיע הקדמה אחת ששמעתיה בשם הרב הקדוש דאריזל. והוא כי לפעמים מתהפך האדם וישתנה מטוב לרע בטבעו ומזגו. Sometimes it could happen, says the Arizal, that a person changes. He was so good up to now. He was good in the way he prays. He was good in the way he learns. He had a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He had a connection with the Torah. He had a connection with the mitzvot. He loved Shabbat. He couldn't wait for Shabbat. He didn't want Shabbat to end. Shabbat is already 6 o'clock. When is Shabbat ending? You look 10 times on your calendar and on the watch when Shabbat is ending. He doesn't have any of that. He loves anything that has to do with the mitzvot. Says the Arizal, sometimes it could be that a person changes instantly. Few months ago he was good in all different things. Now he doesn't have any desire for anything. He doesn't want anything. He doesn't like anything. Why is that? ולא ידע מאיזה סיבה, he doesn't know the reason, והוא עצמו יתמעך נהפך בדעתו. He himself wonders, why did it happen to me? He goes to ask his Rosh Yeshiva, he goes to ask his teachers. Nobody knows. Why did you change like that? I don't know how to help you out. says the Arizal, אמר כי זה יסובב לצד שלפעמים יאכל אדם מאכל שיש בו חלק מחלקי הרע. Sometimes a person eats something that is not kosher. And he says, כאשר תיכנס הנפש הרע או ניצוץ הרע, ותיגבר בו בחינת הרע, מעתה שומר עצמו ממאכלות הרעות, יתגבר החפץ בו בדברים הנוגעים לנפש, והוא אומרו לעשות רצונך אלוקי, which means, says the Arizal, sometimes that could happen just from eating things that are not kosher. You eat something, sometimes it's not even your fault. Sometimes you went and you bought something with a hechsher, as we explained, but the thing was not really kosher because the mashgiach didn't do a good job, and you ended up in your plate and you eat it and you have no fault in it, and still it has such a negative effect. How much we need to be careful on that. David HaMelech says, לעשות רצונך אלוקי חפצתי, I wish to do your desire. When do I wish to do your desire? When do I get the desire to become part of the Torah, to become part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to love the Torah HaKdosha, to love the Shabbat? When do I get that desire? Says the Arizal, that David HaMelech told us, when Toratcha betach me'ai. When I eat things, when in my stomach I have things that the Torah permitted. When I have things that the Torah permitted me to eat, and nothing there that the Torah forbidden me for eating, then לעשות רצונך אלוקי חפצתי. Then only then I have the desire to do the wish of Hashem. Thank you very much for joining today.